Welcome to Das Phone Hunt. I'm Xiao Pierre Ruth for Information Week. And in this episode, we're taking a look at if everyone uses AI, how can organizations differentiate themselves? I mean, right now, most every organization is either got a plan in place or is looking at a plan to try and leverage AI either in-house or to develop something or to find a third party that can help them put something together. But at the end of the day, if everyone's using AI, how do we sort out where's the edge? What's different about companies if they're all using AI to help them with their operations? So once again, brought together some people who are smarter than me and cooler than me to talk about topics. So this episode, we have Andy Boyd, CPO for Appfire, Amol Ajgaonkar, CTO Innovation for Insight, Mike Finley, CTO and co-founder for AnswerRocket, Kashif Zafar, CEO of Xnurta. Let's try this one more time. Kashif Zafar, CEO.
Xnurta.
That's Xnurta. Thank you. Sorry. my brain blanked on that. James Newman, Principal Solution Evangelist for Augury. All of you, thank you so much. And apologies for me hashing up names this time. I don't know what's wrong with me on this particular Friday. Okay. All right. Okay. So, Amol, let's talk about, I guess, the beginning question. You know, what happens when companies start to look like they're just copying each other's homework because they all use AI? Does AI lose its competitive benefit when it's really effectively the market standard?
So that's an interesting question, right? And that, when you asked that question, what popped in my head was, remember the brick and mortar stores? Everybody had a brick and mortar store. Every business had an office. And then internet took off and everybody started having websites. The first few companies that had websites and were able to sell online, the e-commerce, they were great. Everybody flocked to them. Everybody realized, oh, that's one way of making money. Everybody started to get their own websites going. Level playing field, right? Everybody had websites. It felt like, yeah, what's the difference? But still, people flocked to certain businesses more than the others. And the reason that happened was they were still differentiating, even though that had become a market standard. The same will happen with AI as well. Everybody will have AI embedded in their processes. They might have embedded AI in their user interface and so on and so forth. So what differentiates them more would be, what data they're using, what kind of experiences are they bringing to the table, the type of results or outcomes they're providing, right? And the innovation that's happening within the organization. So think of AI as a foundational layer at that point, and what you do below, which is the data that is informing that AI, and what you do above is the innovation, the interfaces, the interaction, everything that's happening from the user or consumer's perspective. That is how they will set themselves apart. At the end of the day, whether it's a business that's providing a service to the customer or they're selling a product to the customer is key. And how we bring that value back to the customer, whether it's speed, whether it's an amazing experience where they don't want to leave your product, they want to buy more of your products. At the end of the day, that is what we're going for. And I think AI is helping everybody to get there. But after that, they're going to be like, okay, bring your innovation, bring your creativity on how you can use this AI to provide a better service. So that is how I see it in terms of, what kind of integration they're providing, what kind of experience they're providing, what data quality they're providing, as well as at that point, certain businesses, when they bring transparency back to the consumer saying, we are using AI, this is how we are using AI, to make them feel comfortable, to make them understand that we are maybe not using your data to do anything, to build a new model. This is how, basically building trust and credibility with the consumer. Those are the companies that will set themselves apart to provide better services amongst everybody that's using AI.
Appreciate your input on that. Okay. Andy, if AI trains on comparable resources and use comparable models, how can organizations actually differentiate what they get from AI? Can they get kind of actually leading back to what Amal was just speaking about? Can they differentiate in-house?
Yeah, this is a question that so many business leaders are trying to answer today. We touched on innovation. I very much agree with that. We all know that it's not ultimately the model. Those are ultimately conversion. Those are being trained on the same set of data, the internet. So that's not the answer. I think a lot of people are looking at the data that they have and the ability to customize that. And I believe that that's true at the technology level, 100% true. But for me, I think the real answer is the people. It's how they use and apply the AI, the innovation that they unleash. And the example that I like to use a lot is building. So you could give me a set of tools and ask me to build the house. I promise you, you don't want that. I mean, unless you like camping under the stars, you don't want me to build a house. But you give a set of tools to a set of gifted architects and craftsmen, they're going to build you a beautiful house. Same tool, vastly different outcomes. And so I think the real answer in how we differentiate, it's all about our people, unleashing the creative innovation that exists in your organization. And so for me, I think the answer is investing in your people, making time to invest in training and resources so that you can unleash that creativity as we learn more about how to apply AI.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And kind of picking back off of that, Kashif, does the development of AI technology, I guess as organizations are investing in it, does the development of the technology, whether it's agentic AI, eventually artificial general intelligence, does that mean that we'll start to see a variety in results and types of advantages that companies can kind of really, realize?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, right? So I think just taking what the first couple of questions in mind, right? So to answer that question, I'll just say this, right? In 2023, 2024, introducing AI to just the community, right? To e-commerce, to just make everyone feel more comfortable was such an educational thing. Like, what is it? Don't be scared of it. You need to be aware of it. And so I think that's very much where we've seen some good progress there in terms of just talking about fundamentally where AI is. But as it relates to the future now, as AI evolves from like static tools to agentic AI, for example, it's really going to unlock even like greater differences between companies that use it effectively and then those that don't. So, for example, in Amazon advertising, where we operate and help brands and sellers sell on Amazon, brands can combine Amazon's first-party audience data with their own first-party data in Amazon Marketing Cloud. But few are leveraging this fully. So those that do achieve ad efficiency by gaining like a 360-degree customer view, they can layer on specialized AI models that can do deeper analysis and act on the data. And then you will drive even better results. So that will give you like insights. So you're leveraging AI to get these consumer behavior insights in, for example, in Amazon's Marketing Cloud, which has been a big thing in 2024. But then with the advent of agentic AI, and as we get more into implementing that, AI will not just provide the insights, but it can also take actions immediately. So for example, we can automate bids in real time based on consumer data that we see on AMC, and then that reduces wasted ad spend. We can predict the best budget allocations before campaigns even launch to improve efficiencies. And then even with AI agentics, we can personalize that experience and scale, serving different creative dynamics based on customer behavior. So right now, AI helps marketers understand the data, but in the future, agentic AI will, in essence, execute the entire marketing strategy without the need of too much or any human intervention. So I think I'll just close with this. The brands that embrace AI and sellers and just e-commerce in general that embraces AI-driven automation will dominate, while those that are relying more on the manual process will just kind of fall behind. So that's really kind of how I see the advent of this as we move towards more AI agentics.
Gotcha. Appreciate your thoughts on that. James, how much difference is there, at least in the here and now, in AI resources that are available? Are there, drastic variances in terms of like the quality and grade of AI that can be leveraged currently? And is that kind of a game changer depending on what kind of quality of AI? Is that a game changer between companies that wanted to make use of this?
It's a really interesting question because e-commerce, the way you apply that there and the way you apply it where we live in the industrial space, there's a lot of difference today in the way AI is being deployed across different parts of our ecosystem. One of the interesting comments that was made earlier was about training the models on common data sets. And when that's the case, that's true. But like in the space we live in, there's a lot of uncommon databases that get used in large language models. Two competitors are not going to share their best lessons learned about how they did a particular process improvement, right? So one of the big game changers here is going to be, how do you deal with public information and private information and control that in a way that gives reliable results? We talk a lot about reliable AI, but everybody in the space I live in claims to have AI, including us, right? We all claim to have it. Some of us say we have agents, some of us say we have helpers, some of us say we have co-pilots, right? It doesn't matter what flavor we call it. We all say we have AI of some sort. The difference is very much about what we do with that capability set. And in our case, we're very purpose-built. We're not a generic AI platform, although we have competitors in the space who are. We build use cases and we have custom, I don't want to say custom database, wrong word. We have refined and moderated large language models and data sets we use to provide a particular outcome for customers. When you do it in that space, there's a lot of difference. Now, in other spaces, that'll vary. If you have access to the common database, it's much harder. But where you can take advantage of these particular sets of information to create a new, unique offering on top of that, a unique insight, that's where I believe the real game changers come in. It's around what new insights you bring, not about what technology you use. We'll all have a technology platform at some time. But being able to bring in specific insights from a particular user base or solve a particular problem is where you'll be able to find and prove, which is, by the way, one of the things it's going to be important for agentic AI, is can people actually trust it more than they trust the people, right? It's a key important point. And we face the same thing today. One of the reasons we don't do agentic AI yet is because our customers don't believe AI is as good as their people yet. As we prove that, they want us to change. They want that change, but they have to believe it's not going to damage their business. So it's an interesting time now because a huge variety now will close over time, but there'll always be that opportunity to find that unique thing you do that lets you be different.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, Mike, it's a big question. What about ROI for AI? Even if companies differentiate what they want to get out of AI, what happens if AI still doesn't offer much in terms of actual tangible benefits? Do we just wait for the technology to mature further? Is that point when we potentially see real variety in AI and its results? What are we feeling right now?
Yeah, thanks, Jean-Pierre. So, look, for the companies like Kashif was mentioning that are AI first, this question is sort of like, what's the ROI of your mother, right? You just got to have one. It's going to be there. You're going to make money using it. For companies that are not in that mode, right, where they have an existing solution, existing infrastructure, old school ML models, they're building AI in. The question is, how do they measure the ROI in those cases? So, for us, we AnswerRocket, we have some very real examples of where this has happened, where customers have been able to implement, use models, and go live in production. So I can talk a little bit about what that looks like. So the first point is to realize that measuring ROI has to be part of the AI arc from the beginning. In other words, you're targeting an ROI, you measure the results of that in your very first test. You do something valuable. If it's doing something valuable, you're going to be able to measure the results. And then that's how you fund the next bit of AI work that you do. That's how you're going to keep it productive. So if you just say, yep, let's start 10 initiatives and see which ones stick, the ROI is going to have to be measured across each of those individually. On the other hand, if you say, look, let's spend some money and learn and see what that investment comes out to be, and then use that to reinvest, then it becomes a self-fulfilling kind of engine. It builds its own flywheel of internal knowledge, of internal proof points and use cases, of customer confidence, and of course, ROI at the end. For the thing that we've seen the most get in the way of AI, of ROI for AI, is not the technology of AI itself. It's all the obstacles along the way. It's scaling it out, right? It's avoiding hallucinations. It's integrating databases. It's training the users on how to re-engineer their own workflows, right? So this is where really the challenge is to the IT organization. IT can look at this and in a lot of situations, what I'll hear is, we can't do AI yet because we have to spend 2 years normalizing our data. Then we'll be ready. Or we can't do AI yet because we need to spend a year making all of our microservices ready to be function call tools in the, in whatever the tool calling protocols. The reality is those are old ways of looking at IT. The new way of looking at IT in the AI world is actually to think of IT as the ones bringing that profitability. IT brings the profitability of AI into the business, and that's a new picture for IT. IT has been used to being a cost center forever, and now it's a profitability point. And so, a couple of interesting examples that are out there. Companies like Sierra that are doing help desk automation with AI. They're living the dream. It's been a dream for a long time in this space of actually only charging based on the results that they get. So literally, ROI is baked into the contract. They don't get paid until you have a successful workflow coming out of it, right? So that is native AI, that is native ROI, intrinsic ROI in the process, right? That's the kind of thing that you see. Another great example is when AI isn't taking away the jobs of people; it's actually taking recs off of the hiring list, right? So we're not going to hire new people because AI is going to do those jobs. These are astounding use cases, and we're seeing them in every workflow that we implement across our customer base, whether that's some live operations workflow that's happening within a restaurant, or if that's in some cloud situation that's happening within a global office, right? So these use cases are self-fulfilling. That if you monitor what's going on with discipline, that'll if you monitor it, you can improve it. If you measure it, you can improve it. And if you have ROI as the fundamental tenant, then you can execute it on a plan. And we've seen it happen very successfully.
All right. Appreciate your insights, thoughts on that. Thank you very much. And thank you to each of you for your input. All right. Now I'm going to kind of flip the remaining questions that we have. And this one actually has kind of been somewhat, I wouldn't say definitively answered, but at least has been stirred up. Are we seeing differentiation in AI resources? I mean, especially since a little thing called DeepSeek decided to emerge, haha, surprise, I'm out of the bushes. That just might be the tip of things, or just might be a one-off. What are each of you? What are your perspectives on are we seeing more differentiation? I mean, just kind of to make an analogy, there was a time when smartphones were equated with just an iPhone at one point. That changed with the Androids and what have you. But looking at AI, are we starting to see more differentiation in AI resources that organizations actually want to make use of?
I think so. I think you brought up DeepSeek, and I think that's a classic example of what it did, where it actually came on the field and said, well, I can do this differently, and I can do this cheaper, and I can be of the same quality as you as, right? And so all the big players in the game said, oops, all right. So now they have to now change course, which is good for the economy, it's good for the market, it's good for companies, because they get more flexibility, they get more options, which is great. That is what we want in that. And plus, the side effect of that is going to drive the price of using AI at scale down. Now, everybody will try to compete with that, which will again create almost like a price war to get, okay, I can be cheaper, which is good, because that'll just make sure that more and more companies and businesses start to integrate AI at scale, which again goes back to all the questions we've answered and talked about of how common is going to be, AI is going to be in all the businesses and applications and experiences. So I think from a differentiation point of view, I think that's a great trigger. And I think this will keep on happening, because they've also, I believe, released white papers of how they did it, which again will start to get people thinking, which will bring more innovation. And we'll have these sparks every so often that'll keep changing the landscape for the better.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that, I mean, other people have tried to differentiate already, right? I won't call the name out, but we have the most emotionally intelligent AI agent, right, in the world, right? People are already beginning to think about how do I differentiate around the world. Cost is one part. Um, how it interacts with humans is another part, right? And so I think there's another part of that story. Uh, Obviously, you want it to be as cheap as possible, but you also want it to be something I can use intuitively, right? Or I can trust, or it understands me, right? So I think there's a lot of ways people will try to differentiate. Um, Cost being one of them, but also the human experience being the other, right? We're a long ways away from the day when AI does it all for us. It'll be a companion, it'll be a tool, it'll be a partner for a long time in many places. How do I help? How does it do that with me? How is it my team? I think will be another place you see a lot of differentiation.
Yeah, I'll just add to that is I think that's what we're talking about. Like for businesses, they're going to really have to like choose what's the right AI resource for them, right? So some industries will benefit more from high context AI that understands their niche, while others will probably prefer more of a broader general purpose model. It just really kind of depends. But I think ultimately, as AI evolves, we'll see even greater being very specific and targeted. So, AI that's trained for financial forecasting or optimized for medical research or tuned for hyper personalized marketing. So, AI is really going to ultimately, as it continues to evolve, won't be a one size fits all. It'll be very fragmented, specialized, and highly competitive.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have an AI talking over the phone, right, you're gonna use a very low latency model that understands digitized audio as tokens, right? There's no time to translate it to text and turn the text into tokens. So that's one case, and there's no reasoning model that meets that, right? The reasoning models, the O1s and the R1s of the world, they take a long time. They're very high latency. They're very high value. Every one of the tokens they produce is super high value, but they don't come fast, right? So that's kind of the trade-off. And there's some more subtle ones as well. Like, if you want to have a conversation about sensitive topics, many of the models won't do that, right? Sensitive topics in my world, it's things like age-restricted product categories, right? Lottery tickets and, alcoholic beverages, right? A lot of the models won't talk about those, especially if you start getting into, things that sound a little bit dangerous, like age brackets and things like that are normal marketing activities. But the model's been, the T in GPT, that training is very generic, and it's intended for consumers to interact with. So now in a business setting, if you try to use that, even though you're trying to have a serious conversation about real business topics, the model may put its hands up and say, sorry, not going to talk about that because I'm not supposed to talk about those products with those kind of demographics, right? And so there are specializations that drive value. It's kind of a whack-a-mole. It's useful in one model, but it actually breaks a different model. And so that in itself bifurcates the space, forces the end users to choose an appropriate model for the target use case, and it makes the overall solution better, not worse, because there is a choice.
I would add to that. I think we've talked a lot about customizing, fine-tuning models, purpose-built for the task at hand. I think that's clearly a vector of innovation and differentiation, no question. I think the thing that I'm excited about is companies that are starting to rethink the way that we interact with software, the world, et cetera, because of AI. So historically, if you look at the world of software, we're used to building products and using products where we click and type and move dials and do different things to configure the software to use it. And we program different into APIs to be able to link up with data, et cetera. And so those are very focused on the way that we interact with the world today. But I think we're starting to see some really novel approaches, like why do we need to type and click and do things? When you look at a lot of the agents, you're typing a prompt. We don't need to type that. We could just speak that. So the UX is going to change. But we're so focused on what we've done for the past 20, 30 years in software that we continue to click and type and configure things in that way. So I think one is definitely the way we interact and changing the user experience is a big area of innovation. But I think the other one that's really interesting, we just saw a couple weeks ago, was a demo of Operator, where they built technology that allows their agents to start to interact with the web as a human does. So not interacting through APIs and programmatically, but navigating in an entirely different way that unlocks tremendous potential and possibility because they've somewhat removed that constraint of having to program through an API. So I think that's going to be another one, is how do we start to use AI to unlock things that heretofore we just couldn't do? And that's a mindset shift. It's going to take some time, but I think that's another really important vector of innovation.
Great thoughts indeed. Appreciate all of those thoughts. And I've got one more question and we'll wrap it up. So, is it inevitable that AI becomes kind of just a basic part of every organization, much like the way that we see the internet or mobile now as part of being the way that enterprises, it's a resource, it's almost like a commodity? Is that the inevitability for AI at some point?
I think so. I think Kashif actually said that in one of his answers before, that it's literally inevitable. AI is going to be in every application. Those who use it will move ahead. Those that don't will be left behind. And that is just going to be the truth. Whether they want to trust AI right now, whether they believe in AI or don't believe in AI, it's not going to be a point to even discuss. AI is going to be there. It is going to be part, whether it's at the forefront as part of the UX, or it's working as some agent in the back end where it's integrating with processes or even simulating or emulating different business processes at that point. Whatever be the case, there will be AI. It's going to be inevitable, and that's going to have an impact on the type of skills and the talent we need in the industry as well. And so even from, not just from a business point of view, but the people who are working in AI, people who are doing their jobs right now, have to think about, how do I upskill right now? If they think that AI is not going to touch them, if they think that AI doesn't matter because I am in this back office doing this one thing, they might be, in for a rude shock in maybe a couple of quarters, maybe a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's actually much. Go ahead.
No, as I said, that last part is really important, right? It won't be equal about timing, right? Some areas are going to be of the world are going to be slower to adopt, but they're going to adopt. It's a matter of time. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. A lot of it comes down to bond trustability, right? Some of it comes down to the old saying, "Never waste a good crisis," right? There's going to be, for many of them, an implementing event that kicks them over the edge of that. It could be in manufacturing. It's often the fact that the age of experience, average tenure in organizations, it went from 20 years to 3 years over the last 2 years, right? Those people don't have the knowledge to run like a 20-year veteran. And by the way, next year they're changing again, and that guy will be gone, and the guy who was there last year and got trained will now be doing the training. It's a cycle that is going to force people into adopting technologies to make them better, and AI is going to be at the core of that.
Yeah.
It's that old saying that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, right? Like everybody's going there. It's just a matter of when. And I think it's actually bigger than those things you mentioned, Jean-Pierre. It's bigger than the internet. It's bigger than mobile, right? It's probably more like electricity. I've heard analysts compare it to fire. I mean, we have met aliens. We have met an intelligence that is not our own, right? That's and now it's a matter of how that comes into our world and how we manage it. And so, and I've got to moderate that kind of talk in my daily activities because that seems really weird in a business setting, but it is kind of the truth about what's really happening out there. And so as companies re-engineer their workforce to use humans in the workflow, instead of thinking of how do we use computers to get a job done, it's more like the computers are going to figure out how to use humans to get a job done. If your role isn't touching the real world in some kind of a messy way, your job is probably up for automation, right? So it's as a colleague likes to say, the gardeners and the surgeons are fine, right? And so it's again those kind of messy environments that humans are really going to still be good at for a long time, better than machines. Those are going to remain. Everything else is subject to automation to the point where there's a balance of of the cost and the quality of what we're producing.
Yeah. If I then even just extend that further from a more of an e-commerce lens space that I'm in, we're already seeing like all our clients really, the mass majority of them are already implementing and leveraging AI, right? There's AI-driven chatbots, there's predictive inventory management, there's, that like we talked about earlier, hyper-personalized recommendations. That's all becoming the norm, right? Especially in the last 12 to 18 months, acceleration there. So companies that don't adopt will fall behind. But then you think about the companies that are going to continue down this path, really that strategy of like optimizing their pricing, improving customer retention, automating fulfillment, really being able to look at the data and make decisions quickly and to be able to just do that through AI. I mean, it is just gonna, if you don't do it, you're gonna be way behind. So I think just, it's already happening, and I think where the adoption is gonna accelerate. And I think that was kind of from my earlier comment, like from my lens of just working with brands and sellers. I think 2023, 2024 was very much learning and getting it's popular, and now momentum is really at a point that I think in 2025 it's going to become definitely the norm in the e-commerce space.
And I want to add to that as well. Like, I think that there's a lot of concern about people losing their jobs because of AI. But what I see more than ever is ways that AI can enhance and extend and complement the jobs that we do. Like the simplest use case is doing lower level tasks, enabling people to do higher level tasks. So a very simple example we can all relate to in our personal lives is the answers that you see in a Google search. 2, 3, 4 years ago, I might be searching for something simple like a recipe. I would go to Google and I would look for that recipe, how to cook a hamburger on the grill. And Google would give me back the recipe, would tell me how long I need to cook it, at what heat. A few years ago, I would have to go to a number of different websites to get that answer. Well, now I've become so accustomed to seeing Google will scour all that information. It will give me all the information, what's the heat, how long, and I don't even punch through to the actual website. So that's saving me time. And you extrapolate that into the business world, how many tasks do we do as knowledge workers where we spend time gathering information, synthesizing it to be able to produce a summary of some sort, and then make a decision? I think there's a lot of use cases where we as knowledge workers can leverage that to focus our time on more productive, higher value tasks. So it's not a destructive effect, it's an enabling effect to help us do more creative, powerful things for our business. And that's what I'm excited about for AI. I know there are concerns about, will my job go away? But I see it in many ways as being an enabler, not a destroyer.
An enabler, especially to do the things you love, as opposed to things you have to do. Yeah, agree.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Gotcha. Great. Well, look forward to seeing how AI potentially can further enables us to do the things that we love and help companies do the things that they love, which is driving operations and making money. So listen, Amol, James, Kashif, Mike, Andy, I thank you for coming on the show today. You've all been fantastic. And again, apologies for messing up names, but I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre.
To listen to the entire conversation, look for the Das1 Hunt podcast on Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon Music, and other popular podcast platforms.